Vancouver West End.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Well, it gives me great pleasure to speak about respecting renters, because for too long I sat on the other side of the House and called for respect, and renters didn't get it. Finally, we are seeing change to respect renters in this province, and I couldn't be happier. And you know, it's about time, because renters need help. 1.5 million people in British Columbia rent. It's not just a phase or a wacky time of life, as I know my colleague, the Leader of the Official Opposition, argued. It is, in fact, for some, their entire life. It is a reality, because right now, given how things have gone over the last 16 years, last 18 years, 1 in 5 British Columbians spend 50% of their income just on rent. That means that they're not putting it away in savings, they're not able to build up a stake for the future. In many cases, Honourable Speaker, sadly, some are having to make decisions about, do they take money from their food budget or do they put it towards rent? And that's the choice that renters were faced under a long-term, well, I sat on the other side in opposition. That's changing. We're seeing a real change now, Honourable Speaker. Now, renters need help in a number of ways. We need more rental supply, and I expect that's what my colleague opposite will argue for. Absolutely, we need more supply of rental to increase the vacancy rate, to give people more choices, and we're seeing that, Honourable Speaker. In fact, last year we had more new rental housing under construction in BC, my understanding, than ever before. We also last year had more rental starts than ever before. And if you compare figures, we've had approximately 3 times the rental starts and rental places under construction in our short 18 months in government than the Liberals had in their 16 years. So, you know, there's a lot to be said about the work we're doing to increase the number of rentals, rental zoning, working with municipalities to reduce the time it takes to get rental housing under construction, the Housing Hub, working with faith groups, nonprofits, private contractors, etc., to get new rental housing built. And on it goes. And we're seeing a real change. 5,000 new units of rental housing at universities, something I know my friends on the other side opposed year in, year out. So, you know, we're seeing a real change, and I think that's something that I'm really excited about. But supply is one thing, Honourable Speaker. We also need to make sure that we're seeing a real change when it comes to how renters are treated. And that's why I'm so glad that we voted to get rid of what was called the fixed-term rent con. That's what I called it anyways. It was a game where people would say, I'll let you live here for a year, and at the end, you're going to lose your house, or I'm going to double your rent. How's that sound? Oh, you don't like that? Well, maybe I'll increase your rent by 30%. How's that go for you? Because you look elsewhere out there, there ain't too many other places you can go to, so you better accept it. That was how the rules sat when my friends on the other side sat here and I sat in opposition. We got rid of the geographic area increase clause. It was a game where a landlord would say to their tenant, well, you know, I see a nice suite somewhere down the road going for 50% more than what you pay. Yeah, it has a pool. Yeah, it has an ocean view. Yeah, it's brand new. But hey, I'm going to tell you that they're charging this much and you're charging this much. I think you better be paying that much. Let's say $2,500. How does that go for you for a 1-bedroom? Or a bachelor? That's what they're paying down there. Oh, what? You're a senior? You've been living in your home for 10 years? Oh, you're not paying that much? Well, too bad. Under the rules that my friends in the Liberal Party set, you can apply to increase. I can apply to increase your rent that much. You don't want to pay that much? Well, I can find a way to increase it just half that much if you sign today. Sign today or the deal goes. And unfortunately, too many people were scared into signing those deals. They either lost their home, they lost their ability to pay the rent, then they lost their home, they lost their ability to buy food. And that's what I faced working in my community with people in this struggle. And we came here again and again pleading for action. We didn't get it. Well, we got it now, Honourable Speaker. We got rid of the fixed-term rent con. We got rid of the geographic area increase clause, which was used to bully people. We've increased penalties, so if people cheat the system, they're going to pay a bigger fine. We brought in a compliance team because, you know, under the former rules, if you got caught taking money from your renter, or if as a renter you got caught stealing from your landlord, you were just told basically, give the money back. You know, we'd have a lot more bank robberies in this province, Honourable Speaker, if the rules were just give the money back if you get caught. Well, that's how it stood for renters. You know, there was something called administrative penalties brought in, and it was talked about all the time. We'll find these guys. You know, they find the guy once. They find a guy once, and then they said, give the money back and we'll make the fine go away. That's how rules worked. That's how enforcement worked. That's how disrespected renters were under the former government. You know, the other thing, it's not just renters who were disrespected, it was landlords as well. And that's why we acted as soon as we got into government to invest in the residential tenancy branch. Why did we do that, Honourable Speaker? Because we needed to reduce wait times so people could get access to information faster, so they could get help faster. And that's on all sides. That's landlords and that's renters as well, because landlords also needed help, and they told us so. So instead of a 20-minute delay to get a response to a phone call, you've got 5 minutes now. Instead of over 6.5 weeks to deal with an emergency, we're down to 4 weeks now. Instead of 25 weeks, Honourable Speaker, if you're trying to get your money back and you were stuck waiting under the former government, we brought that down to 12 weeks. Should there be faster? Sure. But you know what? Cutting it in over half the amount of time under the former governments, that's pretty impressive, and I'm pretty proud of that. You know, we've increased the shelter assistance for elderly renters program so that they can get support. We've increased the rental assistance program for families and others struggling in low income. You know, we also brought in something called a Renters Task Force, and I appreciate the Premier and the Minister of Housing appointing me to be the chair of that task force so that we could get further action for renters. We eliminated the extra 2% the Liberals put on rent increases every year. You know, they said it should be 4.5% rent increase for you this year. We said 2.5. You know, and then I know my friend, the housing critic opposite, will probably argue for no rent controls at all and saying that they can charge your rent 70% increase in a year, as I think he told the radio a couple of months back. But we oppose that. We don't think rents should go through the roof. I know the leader of the opposition argued for rents to go through the roof and opposed what we've done, but we don't think it's just a wacky time. We don't think it's just a phase. We think renters need respect and they need action, and we're delivering that, Honourable Speaker. I've got more to share, and I'm sure my colleague over opposite will have some interesting things to say, and I look forward to responding.
Member Vancouver Falls Creek.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am almost speechless after hearing my friend from the West End just give me his theories on the economics of rental housing. A few months ago, he sent the market for rental housing into chaos by announcing that he would be imposing rent controls. Rent controls. This is like 30 or 40 years after economists from the left and the right have both agreed that it's one of the most certain ways to destroy rental housing. Like, are we in the 90s? Like, where does this come from? My God. As a renter myself, I am really worried about where this is going. I loved the characterization of my friend, the honourable member from the West End, to say how rent works. The rents go up because the landlords say, hey, I think I'm going to charge this much money. Is that how you think it works? It is a product of supply and demand. And when you interfere by artificially bringing in rent controls, that has been demonstrated clearly, and economists on the left and the right agree that this is a very bad idea. I'll tell you who does believe it's a good idea: politicians, and it is true. Politics is great. Politics likes rent controls because what it does is it saves and does support the people who are in. If you're in, you want rent controls for sure. For a while, because what will happen then was the landlords will then disinvest in the rental property, because no sane business person will accept subsidizing their business. You just can't do that. If you start losing money on your business, you take action, you stop investing. And especially if you're told by the government that your revenue is going to be fixed by the government. That's not how the market works. Now, there is another way. If you want to create housing and charge whatever rent you want, it's government housing. You do that. And that is clearly, there's not enough money in the government to actually build housing for everybody and create rental housing. So we rely on the market. And, you know, I mean, Ontario just got rid of rent control on new housing. Why would that be? Because they want to stimulate the creation of housing. And we see people who are building rental housing are actually getting out of it now. They are shocked to see this travel back to the past of some bizarre idea that you can actually tell people that you're going to just cap the rent increases without having serious repercussions on the whole industry. Now, Seattle, what's happening right now is if you want to get a rental, if you want to rent out your place, you have to offer really good incentives, free rent for the first few months. Some are offering flat screen TVs, so renters will come and actually rent their place. That's how you get control of the price of rental. I myself, I'm a renter, and I know where this is going. This is not a good situation for people who want to rent in the downtown. It will be good for the short term for people who are in, but they will start to experience disinvestment, and we will start to see the manufacturers, the creators of rental housing get out. They're going to take their money where it can actually get a return. And it's unbelievable that this is the fate of renters in our city and our province. There is no economist. I'd love to see an economist. Is there an economist
Thank you,
who would
member.
actually
Thank you.
condone what you're doing?
Thank you, member. Vancouver West End.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Well, I appreciate my friend on the opposite side. The BC Liberal Housing Critic has confirmed his party's position. They want unlimited rent increases. Fair enough. That's a point that you can take. He has said he opposes rent controls, and the rent control is something that we've had in place in BC for a long time. Under the Liberals, it was 2% plus inflation. That was rent control. We got rid of the inflation. The argument for getting rid of the inflation was there are quite a few folks who, one, their wages don't go up that much every year. Two, if you're on a fixed income, and I heard this from seniors all across the province, and they're going to be very interested to hear Liberals' opposition to this, their pensions didn't go up 2% plus inflation. They stuck at inflation. And in fact, this last week I was home in the constituency in the West End, and I had senior after senior after senior come up to me and say, you know what, thank you, because I can actually plan ahead. I can actually make sure that I have food, and not every year, like the way they did their budgeting, they would show me. They'd say, well, I figure I can continue to be a renter for another 2 years. After that, I'm not going to be able to eat, and so I'm going to have to move into subsidized housing, meaning everyone else has to subsidize their rent. They've said to me, now I can live independently. I don't have to fear for losing my home because you acted to make rents more affordable. You know, the other thing they said to me, and I heard, is we're starting to see vacancies increase. We're starting to see options increase. And I asked, well, why do you think that is? And they said, well, I think it's got to do with the speculation tax. And they said that they felt that by telling folks they shouldn't be leaving empty homes and they shouldn't be leaving empty condominiums, that they should be rented out, that is increasing the supply of housing as well. And I've seen that. I know my colleagues on the opposition side don't support the speculation tax. They oppose getting people to rent out those empty homes and those empty condominiums. But my constituents want those homes rented out, and I can tell you business people do as well, because that means more people in the community supporting their businesses, and I think that's a good thing. You know, there's a contrast, Honourable Speaker. There's respect for renters, and then there's ignoring and disrespecting renters. We've seen what a long time of ignoring and disrespecting renters looks like, and that means increasing the number of people who are homeless. That means increasing the number of people who are on the edge of homelessness because rents have increased way faster than their ability to pay. It means rent evictions and people getting thrown out on the streets so you can slap a coat of paint on and then double the rent. You know, there are a lot of really good landlords out there, Honourable Speaker, who don't jack up rents to unlimited numbers, but there are those who can game the system, and they got away with it, and they learned that there never was any penalty when they did. Well, Honourable Speaker, I can tell you about good landlords in my community who've renovated their entire building. They kept their renters in place.
Thank you,
They
Member.
upgraded it, and they're people
Thank
we
you.
should support. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.